Alright guys, today I wanted to talk about obviously the fact that England are going to the World Cup next year. That much is confirmed, and I wanted to talk about how far I think Gareth Southgate can take England in general, and also how far he can take them in the next World Cup. Because I think Gareth Southgate gets far too much criticism from people down the pub, and also sometimes the media as well, which I think is really unfair considering the relative success that England have had at the two tournaments that Southgate's been in. Well, two major tournaments, obviously Nations League as well. But in terms of the World Cup and the Euros, Southgate has taken England to a final and also a semi-final, which, I mean, first manager to take England to a final in 55 years. So obviously that is some achievement. And also, England haven't reached many semi-finals since then either. All I can think of is 1990 and 1996, I think, since 1966, obviously. But yeah, it's a massive achievement, and also semi-finals in the Nations League. Obviously, that doesn't stand out as much, but still. And a lot of people criticise Southgate for the way that England play, in terms of they think, oh, it's too negative. He doesn't play all these so-called generational talents. But when they say that, they mean Phil Foden, Jack Grealish and Jadon Sancho generally, and maybe Jude Bellingham more recently as well. But you can't throw all of these players onto the pitch and expect it to work. That's not the way it works in international football, because obviously it's not like club football where you get players playing with each other week in, week out, and eventually they work out each other's strengths and weaknesses, and how to adapt, and how basically how to play together and make it successful. Whereas international football, you kind of have to take players that are already in a system at club level and put them into and try and fit them all together in a lineup of 11 players that will work. It's like, so for example, Man City, what was I going to say? Raheem Sterling's best position is on the left wing of the three, and Jack Grealish, when Sterling plays and Grealish plays at Man City, Grealish will usually play as the false nine, the player who sort of has a free role. But then if you're playing a false nine, you don't really play a striker, so you get what I mean. And then obviously people want to throw Phil Foden into it as well, so you can't really play all four and it work as well as it would if you didn't play all four, really. But that's what people want to believe, that you can just throw all these players in and expect it to work. And like people will say, oh, but it worked for Spain in 2010. They threw all their best players in onto the pitch and it worked. People forget with Spain in that period of 4 years, 2008 to 2012, that Spain's midfield was pretty much Barcelona's midfield. It was Sergio Busquets, Xavi and Iniesta. In 2012 they played slightly different. There was more midfielders in. I think they just played like 4 defenders and then 6 midfielders. So you've already got a system of players that already know how to play with each other really well. And yeah, so I think Southgate does get far too much criticism for that. But one of my criticisms of Southgate would be that I feel like, I'm not sure how to compare it, but bit like how in boxing you see Anthony Joshua, if he comes up against a hard opponent and the opponent sort of got Joshua's number and Joshua's struggling, Joshua's not very good at adapting in game. So whilst the fight's going on, so and I think Southgate's slightly similar with the way he manages his teams, in the sense that I feel like sometimes he can get his substitutions wrong and like doesn't maybe not so tactically astute as some managers are in terms of how he can change a game. Like whilst it's happening in front of him. So and yeah, so I think Southgate is the right manager for England right now, 100%. And also Southgate, what Southgate's got at the moment is a brilliant group of players, and people are saying, we can't waste all this brilliant talent on Gareth Southgate. Well, who are we going to get in as manager? There's not many managers, because generally in today's game, the best managers are all managing club teams. And I know club managers are allowed to manage an international team at the same time, but you don't see it happening because it's far too much for the managers to handle if they're doing club and international team. So yeah, so the top managers don't really ideally want to be managing an international team. So I don't get this idea of we can't waste all this talent on Gareth Southgate. It's ridiculous. But yeah, and also I want to talk about how I think England will do, or how well they could potentially do. So like maybe the maximum they could achieve at the next World Cup in November, December next year. I think we can win it, because I don't feel like at the moment in international football there is one standout team at the moment. Like if you look at the South American teams, Brazil aren't really at like their best at the moment. They're sort of going through a weird transitional period. Argentina, they got some very good players, but also some very weak parts in their team, similar to Uruguay as well. And I think anyone else in South America, England are capable of beating. Africa, that's sort of a similar thing to South America. There are some very good teams, but also I think the vast majority of teams you would expect England to beat. North America, without too much disrespect, we should be beating pretty much every team in that corner of the world. Same with Asia, and obviously that leaves Europe. So the South American teams are usually the teams that trouble England outside of Europe, and they're not at their best right now. And in Europe, so if we look at like maybe the top 8 team, there's an 8-team section, I think, that are considered the strongest countries in European football. So you've got England, Spain, France, Italy, Germany, Portugal, Holland, and Belgium. So they're the 7 that 7 plus England, so 7 teams that I think will trouble England. Outside of them, realistically, we should be beating any other team in Europe. There are a few other teams like Serbia, Sweden, Switzerland maybe that could cause us problems, but you'd like to think that we could beat them. So I think we need to be getting to quarterfinals minimum, really. Round of 16 exit would be really disappointing. yeah, that's my thoughts on how well England can do, and I think we can win it. I think purely because of how there isn't like a top team in Europe at the moment, as well as pretty much anywhere in the world. I think Brazil are the best in South America, but I don't think they're really any better than the top teams in Europe. But yeah, anyway, that's pretty much all I've got to say. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.